What's going on, guys? Proto here. Today we're going to be going over some mapping software and going over some of the things that went wrong on yesterday's trip. Let's get to it.
Because the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Alright, everybody. So, I thought this was a good little picture to throw in there as something we're going over today. I'm going to start with what kind of went wrong yesterday. Really kind of talk about some of the things that didn't go as planned. The first being really what was the plan. As I put out on that video on Monday, is if you're going to go do something, have a plan. Well, my plan was to be able to go out, fly the drone, kind of see what the area is like. I just moved to a new area, so really trying to figure out what that area is like, seeing if there's any good spots to go out shooting, camping, whatever that may be, and then also use the new software that I downloaded on the computer to be able to listen to any radios or things like that, which construction companies might be using in the area. We'll start off with the first thing. I knew there were trails. I knew there were roads that I could take. It's on the backside of, technically it's a state park, but all of those have since been closed. So I knew those were there until I got there. I didn't know if they were closed or not. The Google road map images hadn't been updated. And then we'll go to the other side of the road. It was a good mixture of public lands and what should have been state or private or state or public land. What had happened was a lot of that land actually got bought out from either the state or private ownership, and a bunch of housing is going out where I had planned to go. So I knew that there was at least one road I could take. However, the company that was building in that area decided to take ownership of that road, being that they thought it was in a remote area, and they completely locked it and gated it. Is that legal? No. They don't own the road. It's not a private road. It was a public road. It was a main road that if you drew a straight line from that road to the other side of the quote state park, you would run into a main road where cars, trucks, and traffic signals, all that stuff is actually driving on. So that irked me quite a bit. So I spent a good hour driving, trying to find some spots. The issue that I really ran into is I didn't have great service, and so I wasn't able to really pull up any good land maps to find a good area to go into. I had some spotty coverage, and I was able to really see some okay areas, but that would have taken another probably 45 minutes to drive to, and that's even if my vehicle is able to get out to those areas. So I'll say that was part one of kind of what went wrong. Part two would have been more along the lines of what I had brought. So I tried to fit everything into that backpack. I will flash the picture up here in just a second. So here's that picture that I was talking about. I had posted it on my Instagram. So I have my range belt with my medic bag. I have this thing, and then let me zoom in. I have the RTL SDR, and then also have my laptop. It has Linux software on it, and I put some mapping stuff on there. And I don't know if it can be seen somewhere hidden in this mess of wires. Not only is this radio, but a GPS dongle that I can throw on the roof and at least try and get an actual GPS or an accurate GPS signature. My radio, not this one, but my mobile radio does have GPS on it, so I can actually view my lat and long as long as I have open air and I'm not inside. It's really accurate, really quick. So that is one thing I can do. My little backup there. and then the drone. Now, what's different about how I have all this is I have it in that backpack. Normally I have everything in its own spot. I have my drone in a Pelican case. I have everything else in there. I have the laptop in something different. All of that to make sure that the parts that I need aren't missed. And what you'll see here is I have the battery. If you don't know how, this is a DJI Mavic Pro. This little cutout is the battery. I think the controller's off screen, and the other battery's off screen. It's all great and dandy. I did not bring the cable to view the camera from my phone. That's not really an issue if I'm flying in an area that I know, or if I'm flying just for fun. I can fly this just by view. That's how I learned to fly it. However, where I was at and what I wanted to do, I needed that cable. I actually ended up finding, though, on my way back, I went the same way back, but obviously heading the opposite direction, you see things that you didn't the first time. I did see a little cutout, so I shot in there, and it was actually a back trail entrance into that state park. It was mainly used for horses and such, and that's where I was going to fly the drone. But again, I didn't have that cable. I didn't know that area. Granted, there was at least some stuff, or some good visual that I had over the drone if I were to fly it just by view. Being that really the state parks don't allow drones, and me not being able to see exactly what's near me, I didn't want to risk somebody swatting that thing down. The entire plan was to go out, stay in the truck, fly the drone, pull up the computer, and listen on the radio. A few of those things happened. Tried pulling up the computer. I just couldn't get it to catch a signal for whatever reason. And then the radio, I did get to listen. I had my mobile going, and I was able to hear some of the construction workers and such talking. They were just using the MERS channels, and I have those in my story. I have a list of all those different channels. So how could this gone better? Well, a little bit more planning, a little bit more double checking, not being rushed when I was leaving in the morning, because I was actually heading somewhere first, and then I was going out to do all of this. So all of that could have been better. I ask that you learn from my mistakes. Make sure you double check your gear, make sure you know where you're going, make sure you have everything you need or think you may need. So with this, with this video, the second part's going to be mapping. It's something that I didn't really go over, and something that I use quite a bit when I go out, though it's not always super accurate. Some of these things are for my state, so make sure your state at least has some of this stuff. I know mine is one of the few that has essentially public land. It's from the Bureau of Land Management. It's essentially free land that we can go on and do stuff with, and taxpayer dollars fund that land. So let's go to that stuff. All right, so we're going to go over a handful of different mapping softwares. All of these can be used on your computer. First one's going to be Onyx. This is one that I don't use, but a handful of people have commented on my previous drone video about using Onyx. It is a paid site only, or a paid application only. 1 year is $100, which seems to be pretty common across the board in places where there's an upgrade pattern. And then the premium, which only gets you one state and a handful of things, is $30 a year. Depending on what you're doing this for, Onyx does have different things. As you can see, if you look up top here, they have just the regular Onyx, they have the hunt, off-road, backcountry. All of these things offer different, we'll call them layers, and information for these maps that they're giving you. And this isn't one that I use. However, that $100 is pretty common across the board when you're looking at mapping stuff for consumer use. The one that I use is CalTopo. Quite a few people have made videos about CalTopo, and I've only really had one issue with it, and it's really just the lag time of things loading on the mobile. You can go in and say, let's go to the panhandle of Texas up here. Let's go to Potter. So you have different base layers that you can use. There we go, global. So they do have the satellite, it's called global imagery. Again, all this is helpful for when you're trying to plan something. You can make points, can add markers, range line. The one thing that you can do is make that view shed layer, which shows you what's viewable and what's not from a certain area, which is extremely helpful when you're doing anything with radios, because a lot of the stuff that you'll deal with is just straight line of sight. It's super easy to import, export them. You can save them. You can save it to where it's a view only. You can save it to where people can edit. You can share the maps. You can create, it says, so we'll go over to there's a bunch of stuff that I could go over, but it's quite a bit that needs to be done to go over this. If you want a video going over CalTopo and how to use it, let me know. I'll do that. But if we go to pricing, I just have the free account. You just have the maps, and you can print up to an 8.5 by 11. The mobile, you get offline layers, so that is super helpful, especially in a situation like I was. And then you have private maps. There is a way to do this without paying $20 a year. It's just not truly private. And then you have their Pro, $50 a year. You have a bunch more things. But then again, you have that $100 a year, and you get the GIS tools. You have the desktop application, where it's actually desktop, not web-based. This is all web-based. I did notice up here, so if you are a guide or a first responder, you might be able to get one for free, an account for free. Who knows? You do have to have an account already. So when you go to click find out more and apply, you actually have to create a free account first. So we'll go to this one next. This is OpenStreetMap. This is that GPS or the mapping software that most people will use if they are wanting to de-Google their phone or de-Apple their phone. This has not so much the layers that you would use for outdoor stuff, but this is for, as you can see, cycling, the transportation, and then a handful of different other styles of maps. These are all their different layers. There are ways to view more information, like if you use the Google app, or the Android app, you can view specifically if you want power lines and a bunch of different things that make the the city version of it very useful for when you're doing urban stuff. I'll leave that at that. And then we're going through my state. It has the public land ownership information. So the state, the Bureau of Land Management, National Service, both park and forest, fish and wildlife, Indian, residents, military. You have the local and state, and the other. So this is extremely helpful. So let's say what's over here? Let's say you're down off over in Fort Thomas. It gives you a good idea of, now this is a government run map, so it is not the best. This is the okayest map that I've used from them. It does give you that dividing line though of where the land starts and stops, and it does give you a decent overlay of where things may be. So you'll see it's kind of weird how there's this line here, and you go from either public to Indian to public, or you can go public, state, public. Either way, if you cross into these two areas without permission, could be trespassing. I'd rather trespass on the state land than the res land. That's not super fun. And then the one good thing is you can hit these four squares and you can do a bunch of different overlays. This is a very good, call it mapping software from the state in terms of what they give you. Is it the best? No, but it is very good for what they give you. We'll move this over here. So this blue area is that state trust land. It says state land, but it's called state trust land. If you do state trust land permits, it'll come up with wherever you're at, because that's how the government and the internet works. And if you go down, Arizona site is super simple. If you go down to recreational land use, individual recreational permit, these are how you can get permits. Now, it tells you what type of permits there are. One, these are the instructions, but it tells you what types of permits. You have the individual, family, small group, large group, and then all your rules and responsibilities. I'll say flip side to all of this is you have to pay, and it's only good for, I believe, a year. But there's a lot, depending on where you're at, that, $20 for you and your spouse may be worth it to be able to go a lot more places than just that little small square of public land. So this is something to look at. And then everybody's favorite, Google Maps. Google Maps is actually very good for two things. We'll go up into Payson. One, they have all of the different points of interest. These are called POIs. Very good if you're going to an area that you don't know. It's very good to know a lot of things, mainly gas, restaurants, and medical centers. The other flip side to Google being really good is you do get some pretty good satellite imagery, and you get the street view. If you're out, how I would have found areas to go camping is I'd find an area that I knew was public, and I'd look for pull-offs into the road or into the dirt. And I go, okay, cool, maybe I can go here, pull back up onto the street view, and see if it's truly a trail, or if it's just something that's more of a cutout, like this. Trying to keep this at about 20 minutes, and we're just about at that 20-minute mark. So I apologize for the failed experiment on Tuesday. However, it's not really a failure as long as you learn from it. Let me know what you guys think of all this mapping software. If you have one that you use that you love, let me know. I'll make sure I pin that comment. And if you have any comments or suggestions, please leave them down below. You guys have a great rest of the week, and I will see you on Monday.
Because the road to hell is paved with good intentions.